Welcome to Talking Climate with Katherine Hayhoe. Each episode, we explore how climate change is affecting the people, places, and things we love, and what we can do to make a difference. From science to solutions and stories that inspire, you're in the right place for real talk about real change. International Climate Meeting number 30, COP30, wrapped up in Belém, Brazil last week, marking the end of 2 weeks of negotiations, protests, and discussions. I didn't attend myself, nor did many other scientists, yet there still weren't enough hotel rooms for everyone who had to be there. Many attendees slept on cruise ships in rooms that I heard were going for well over $1,000 a night. A fire broke out inside the convention hall, prompting an evacuation of the Blue Zone and pausing delegates' negotiations. Fellow climate scientist Michael Mann said the quiet part out loud when he dubbed this blaze a disturbingly apt metaphor. And this wasn't the only symbolism these past 2 weeks. The conference venue was plagued with leaks from heavy downpours and an air conditioning system that couldn't keep pace with the heat and humidity in Belém, conditions that will become even more frequent as the planet warms. This year marked 10 years since the signing of the Paris Agreement. And despite the frustratingly slow pace of the COP meetings, significant progress has been made in the last decade. As I shared recently, global emissions used to be tracking a scenario that would take the world to 4 to 5 degrees Celsius, 7 to 9 degrees Fahrenheit, by the end of the century. But thanks to all the policies enacted and advances in clean energy over the last decade, we're currently heading toward a world that's 2.8 Celsius, 5 degrees Fahrenheit warmer. And if all the countries' nationally determined contributions are implemented, the warming will be around 2.4 Celsius, 4.3 Fahrenheit. So what happened at this COP? As always, there's good news and not so good news. Let's dive in. Good news. COP meetings typically act like global potlucks, where, in addition to negotiating global agreements, each country brings its own unique contributions to the table. In the host country of Brazil, for example, cattle ranching drives much of the illegal deforestation. So it was a major step forward when the governor of the state of Pará, where Belém is located, committed to tagging all 20 million cattle in the region to track deforestation. This is a huge project the Nature Conservancy has championed for years, creating a digital paper trail to ensure no deforestation is linked to beef production. The launch of the Tropical Forest Forever (TFF) fund brought more good news for nature. Backed by $5.5 billion in initial commitments, it aims to curb deforestation by rewarding countries that keep their forests intact. The Guardian's Jonathan Watts called it the biggest and boldest plan yet to staunch the loss of tropical forests that are a pillar of climate stability. Brazil and Germany each have pledged $1 billion, with Norway promising $3 billion. In contrast, South Korea's potluck contribution focused on coal. The country operates the world's 7th largest fleet of coal plants, but at COP30 it committed to closing all 40 by 2040 and building no new unabated plants. South Korea becomes the second Asian nation after Singapore to join the Powering Past Coal Alliance, launched in 2017 at COP23 in Germany. Finally, and most importantly, Colombia and the Netherlands announced the first international conference on the just transition away from fossil fuels, to be held in Colombia in April 2026. There is a clear momentum to phase out fossil fuels, and now is the time to capitalize on it, said Sophie Hermans, the Dutch Minister for Climate Policy and Green Growth. We must begin to materialize what this phase-out could look like and start a concrete roadmap that allows us to incorporate the new and leave the old behind. Step by step, these commitments show that progress is possible and that every action to move beyond fossil fuels brings us closer to ensuring a livable future. Not so good news. This COP promised to be the implementation COP, where countries would figure out how to limit temperature rise to the Paris target of 1 to 2 Celsius. So did it deliver on that promise? In short, no. Much of the last-minute negotiations hinged upon whether the final agreement included a pledge to transition away from fossil fuels. 83 countries pushed to have this statement included in the final agreement, supported by a letter organized by the We Mean Business Coalition that was signed by over 150 other nonprofits, regional and city governments, and companies. This forced the negotiations into an overnight session on Friday. And on Saturday, the final plenary session had to be suspended after negotiators from multiple countries, led by Colombia, claimed that the agreement was being gavelled through without letting them speak. Ultimately, however, that wording didn't make it into the final deal. Instead, the COP30 president promised that the issue of stronger language on moving away from fossil fuels can be raised again in 6 months' time at an interim COP meeting. Here's the problem, though. There is no path to meeting the Paris targets without almost entirely phasing out fossil fuels. This isn't rocket science. It's basic physics we've understood for over a century. To stabilize global temperature at any level, let alone 1 to 5 to 2 degrees Celsius, we must remove the same amount of heat-trapping gases from the atmosphere as we emit. Although some carbon removal is possible thanks to a range of nature-based and technological fixes, from reforestation and regenerative farming to carbon capture, their capacity is nowhere near enough to offset the emissions of unchecked fossil fuel use. The science is settled. What's missing is the resolve to act on it. And the longer we wait, the higher the cost. What you can do. As I mentioned in last year's post about COP29, we need climate action at the local level. And one of the best ways you can help it along is by having climate conversations. A new study by the Yale Program on Climate Change Communication finds that people are most likely to talk about climate change when they think it matters and when they think other people are doing something about it. Well, that's what this newsletter is all about. This week, I posted these helpful conversation starters from Livable Climate on my Substack. Number 1. How has climate change impacted your life? What changes have you seen or heard about or noticed? Number 2, what changes concern you the most? What might you lose as climate changes? And number 3, what actions would you like to take to help ensure a livable future for your family? How do they make our lives better short-term as well as long-term? I particularly appreciated this beautiful reply from Ren Ansey. I sometimes catch myself looking out the window, wondering where the songbirds have gone. I wait on the cold snaps of winter that seem less and less reliable. I worry for the water. We take for granted clean water flowing from our taps and long, hot showers as the land around me becomes cracked and arid. I know cognitively that I may have limited ski seasons remaining. I hold my cups of coffee and glasses of wine and bowls of tropical fruit a little closer. Lately, I bypass pineapple from faraway farms altogether. I take all of this as motivation into action in my professional work as an educational developer. I'm no longer interested in a career path that omits climate literacies for myself and others. We all have the right to climate education, and yet I believe many of us can and should take up this education for ourselves rather than waiting on formal education systems that may never reach us. But we can all own our own learning. I want to create ways of bringing climate education into our everyday learning, hobbies, interests, and actions. Thank you, Ren. So this week, your to-do is either share the news in this newsletter or use one of the prompts above to start a conversation with someone you know. You don't even have to answer the question. Just ask them. Thanks for listening to Talking Climate, narrated by Ann Cloud. For more resources, links, and actions you can take, check out the full newsletter at www.talkingclimate.ca. Thanks for listening. And remember, every conversation counts.